Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're going to be talking about the price increases in Indonesia and in Brazil, kind of why they happened, and going forward, what it kind of means for gummy and what it means for the consumers who are in Brazil and Indonesia as well. So for those of you that didn't know, the price of Visior did increase in Brazil by almost 50%, and in Indonesia it increased by about 10%. Now these prices had been basically already elevated by the Apple Store, but Google and Amazon stores had both delayed the price increase that was kind of made public last October, and they've kind of fully implemented them right now. So for a lot of people, when they woke up this morning or the other day, if you were in Brazil or if you were in Indonesia, you did see in Indonesia a 10% increase due to taxes that Indonesia has basically implemented. And in Brazil, you saw a 50% increase, which is bonkers. So all this has kind of been coming down the pipeline for a while. Probably this has been most controversially talked about in the Genshin Impact community because this affected a lot of Genshin players a couple months back, and a lot of people were talking about it back then. And pretty much right now, it's just starting to hit War of the Visions. Now, we are a global community, so I did want to talk about this. I'll go ahead and put up the comment that kind of triggered this. So it was from Eric. And Eric said, "Doctor, I woke up today and I was going to buy the 30-day Visior pack. But for my surprise, it was 50% more expensive than usual. All prices in Brazil were raised. No warnings, no notices, nothing. I really love this game and I am a light spender. But right now, I feel really betrayed by Gumi. 50% raise is just too much, and the Brazilian community is not strong enough. We don't have big streamers neither, someone who can be listened to by Gummy. So please make some noise." I did ask for screenshots. He wasn't able to provide them to me, but Eric Mojo and a couple others in the Indonesia community also reached out and mentioned that they had the 10% increase. Now, while it's true that Gummy didn't put forward any official notice in game, which would have been nice and courteous, I think it is incorrect to blame Gummy for this situation. The reason I think that is because Gummy is essentially just passing on the increase in cost to the consumer, right? So through Brazil, for example, a lot of this was done because of currency differences between the dollar and the Brazilian currency. And in Indonesia, this was because of a direct 10% tax that Indonesia's government put on foreign company digital goods, right? So in Indonesia's case, you can literally see the 10% price increase on Visior just pass directly onto the consumer and put onto the Visior. Now, in terms of Brazil, we have a little bit of a different situation because we see almost a 50% increase. And I don't know what dictates that 50% increase, but what I can tell you is the difference between the dollar and the Brazilian dollar equivalent has not increased 50% in the last year. So I really wonder why we saw such a massive increase. I can't speak to either the Brazilian government or any taxes or levies that they passed in order to tax digital goods. I couldn't find any. It wasn't as clear cut as, say, Indonesia, where it was really clear that Indonesia passed a 10% tax bill. Like that was everywhere. When I started Googling this and looking it up and figuring it out, like that was plastered everywhere. Same with India. Like it was really clear cut where the increases were coming from and why. When you get to Brazil, though, and some of these other countries that have been affected, it's kind of like currency exchange is the word that they use. But when you look at the currency exchange, it doesn't really make sense unless they are trying to kind of hedge their bets and plan for the future, which would mean that they basically plan for Brazil's currency to be devalued even further in the future, which, given Brazil's current situation, I know as a country that there's some, difficult things and things are going on in Brazil that are really rough right now. And I would feel, that if you are someone who's making these decisions on a higher level, that's probably what you would be thinking. So I don't know why Brazil saw such a huge increase. I imagine it's probably because somebody in the app stores world, right? Probably not in Gummy's world, decided that this was the value change that apps needed to have. So I don't think this is actually Gummy's doing, right? Of course, Gummy could adjust what they're doing, and the app stores could adjust what they're doing as well, which is what Gummy has been doing, right? And whether it's the app stores or whether it's Gummy that's been doing it, they have been adjusting their prices for the last couple of months in order to have less of an impact on the consumer, as opposed to Apple's market, which just decided to implement the changes immediately, and with like no warning, right? Like that's what the huge ruckus was about a couple months ago, was that Apple was just rolling it out immediately, and people just were like, what? Where's this coming from, right? So now we're kind of left with this situation where, you know, a lot of players in Brazil are not going to be able to purchase things in game. And I'm wondering if on Gumi's side, they maybe need to make an adjustment to the price of Visior. But that would cause a problem, right? Because a lot of people would be able to either VPN into Brazil, or they would be able to kind of flag their account as from Brazil, purchase Visior at a discounted price, right? Because Gummy would be discounting it for Brazil. And then it would leave other players, you know, like, unless you know how to VPN in Brazil, you're not going to get a good deal on Visior. So there's a lot of really interesting questions and a lot of, you know, things to think about when we're thinking about this issue. And I don't think this is a situation where it's like Gumi is this terrible bad guy. I think it really comes down to the app stores. It really comes down to currency conversion and currency projection, right? Like, what's the projected value of a currency for digital goods? And it comes down to how we value digital goods, right? And I don't have a solution because, you know, there are so many things that, you know, you could try to implement that might really not work, right? Like, you could try and say like, oh, we'll geo-lock players in Brazil and we'll lower their cost or expenses so that they can purchase things and not experience, right, like this crazy inflation. But that's not going to work because you could just, you know, flag your account through a VPN that you're from Brazil. You know, people have been doing this in other countries for a long time, where they've been VPNing to other countries to take advantage of currency differences in order to purchase in-app items, right? Probably most commonly this is done with the Philippines, and actually there's a whole market in the Philippines with this as well, around manipulating conversion and getting good exchange rates for purchasing Visior at a good discount. How I know that is people have told me about it. Back when War of the Visions was first starting, this was one of the cheaper ways to get Visior, although very illegal, right? But yeah, I don't really know where we go from here. It's difficult to point blame at anybody or anything in particular. And I think, you know, in Indonesia's case, a 10% tax raise, like, the Indonesian people know, right, that 10% tax is probably going to go to their country. But in Brazil's situation, it's literally just like, we're going to price hike on you, right? So it's kind of fucked up. I don't really know how, like, what solution to offer you guys. I don't know, you know, I don't think being irate is going to solve anything, but I also don't think, I also don't see any solutions. And I would definitely be interested to know what you guys think would be a good solution in the comment section down below. Because for me, I don't know what you can do, right? Like, I think in order to change something like this, or in order to either, you know, move on from something like this, like the whole structure of digital currency within War of the Visions would have to be changed, right? Or our whole concept of gacha gaming would have to be changed. So it's really, it's a tough situation. And it's also a situation where, you know, I want to ask the question the other way around, right? Which is there ever a situation in which the price of Visior would go down, right? If currency conversion is a justifiable reason to increase the price of Visior, why aren't we seeing currency conversion being a justifiable reason to lower the cost of Visior? Again, these are just questions that I'm asking that I don't have the answer to. And this might be a video that I have to go more in depth on, because I have wanted to do a video like this for a long time. Because not only are we talking about differences in currency conversion, we're also talking about differences in lifestyles in countries around the global community. I'll give you an example. I was talking with Calypsy, who, if you guys are familiar with Calypsy at all, Calypsy is a longtime Brazilian viewer of mine. And just to put it in perspective, how this affects Calypsy and some perspective, right? So Calypsy said, I used to buy the $75 bundle. It was about 370 reais. Now it is almost 600 reais. I can't spend on this game anymore. The fact is the $75 cost is basically like half of Brazil's minimum wage. And now she's saying it's 1/3. We went on back and forth talking about this, but I know this is very similar in Indonesia, right? Where, you have a $79.99 bundle in America, but in Indonesia, it's the same price, right? Like, it's still the equivalent of $79.99 USD, but that is much more money in Indonesia. That is, it's just like Calypsy is talking about in Brazil. It's significant, right? It would be like spending the equivalent of like $300 or $400 on War of the Visions in a US or EU perspective. So there's a lot to talk about here. And there's also a lot of things to talk about regarding privilege, right? Because I think a lot of players who live in the US, a lot of players who live in the EU, don't realize how privileged we are as opposed to people who play this game from other countries. I don't think we realize how cheap this game is for us compared to other people, and the impact this game can have financially on someone who might be just buying the $4.99 bundle, as opposed to, someone else who's buying the $4.99 bundle, and what that means for someone living in the US versus somebody living in Indonesia. There's a lot of questions to ask regarding this. And again, I don't have all the answers, but this is kind of like my beginning conversation video where I just want to open it up. I want to hear what you guys think, because I do think there is at foundational levels some ethical issues with this. And I think because we are uniquely poised as a global game, this is something that, we have to figure out and deal with globally. And it's going to be really easy for US and EU players to be like, oh, it's not a big deal, shelve it, right? It's only affecting Brazil. But really, that's a terrible thing to say, right? And I think for a long time, a lot of players have been saying the equivalent of that. So think about it. Leave me a thoughtful comment. I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this. As always, if you do want to support me, make sure you use my affiliate link, dig.gs/coins, or you can go to dig.gs/offer as well. And finally, as always, everyone, have a great rest of your day. I will be streaming tonight, so make sure you swing by and say hi. And look forward to more videos about this specific topic, because it's one I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I think it's a really important topic to talk about.